Hello and welcome to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg. I am here today because I am thinking about books that I still want to try to read in 2020. We are rapidly approaching the end of the year, and that is shocking, exciting, because this really good things have happened in this year, but it has been a giant stress ball and just a lot. I don't know if 2021 will be any better, but hopefully it can't be any worse. I'm afraid to even say that though. But anyway, I'm thinking about books that I still want to get in at the end of the year. We are halfway through October, so I have about 2.5 months to get more reading in. So here's what I've done. And maybe this is a weird way of doing it, but I didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare, and I wanted to get a video in. So, you know, I'm making time in my day for you. So hopefully this will work. So I pulled a bunch of books off of my bookshelves, and what I'm thinking I'm going to do, because it's far too many to make a TBR for the end of the year. If you follow along, you know I am terrible at TBRs, really terrible at TBRs. I continue doing them as a sort of suggestion to myself. And I don't know why. I enjoy doing them, but if I have like a TBR and I end up having other priorities or not having time for something, I end up feeling really stressed. So to me, it's better to have suggestions. So I always just take these as like, if it doesn't happen, that's fine. But these are the things I would like to get to. So take all of this with a grain of salt, because it is always possible that I won't get to any of these books by the end of the year, although I'm really hoping. I'll get to at least some of them. So I'm going to go through, and I stopped at this point. There were a lot more books that I could have pulled. I wanted to have like a manageable thing to go through, and I'm going to try to pick from this like manageable pile an even more manageable TBR. And you get to kind of sit in with me as we do that. So let's get going. Up first, I actually have two piles you can't see. Oh, and by the way, you can kind of see we already set up our Christmas village in our house. I know it's early, I know it's not even Halloween, but this year we really just needed a spark of joy. So we put it up. We have Halloween decorations outside, so we didn't forget Halloween. Calm down. We also have Halloween decorations on the table, some Thanksgiving decorations on the table. But Christmas lives here, and I'm okay with it. Anyway, the first book on this pile is something I need to get in by the end of the year. So this is going in the must pile. It's The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. And the reason I need to do this one is it really the only categories left for genres in my Read Outside Your Comfort Zone challenge. Part of that goal is to read genres I don't traditionally read. I need to get a sci-fi and I need to get a fantasy. This would hit sci-fi. So The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin is a must. I need to get this in by the end of the year. And I'm really looking forward to it, actually. I just haven't had a chance to do it. So this is going on the must pile, but it's not like I feel like I'm forced to do it. I'm actually excited to read it. I've never read Ursula K. Le Guin, and actually, that's not true. I read one of hers in high school. Where's her list of other writings? Oh, they don't have one. Did she write The Lathe of Heaven? I think she did. If she did, I definitely have read a different book by Ursula K. Le Guin. I'll find out if she wrote that or not, and I'll put it down here. But I may have read another book by Ursula K. Le Guin, but she's an author I have not explored much and I've heard really good things about. So this is going on the must pile, and I'm excited about it. Now let's go from the other pile. His Family by Ernest K. Poole. So this is part of my Pulitzer Prize project, and if you follow along, you've heard me talk about it a fair amount, because this was the first book to ever win the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. I had been planning to start my Pulitzer Prize project, in which I want to read every book that has won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. I'd been planning to start that project with this book, and I didn't in the end, because I just kept putting it off and putting it off. And I did read the supplemental book that would go with this, because basically it is believed that Ernest Poole won the first Pulitzer because of a different book that he had written called The Harbor about 2 or 3 years before the Pulitzer Prize for fiction existed. So he won for this kind of as a recognition of his previous book. And so I've read The Harbor, but I haven't gotten to His Family yet. And here's the thing. I ended up reading Lonesome Dove first for my Pulitzer Prize project. And there's a different Pulitzer Prize book that I would rather prioritize before the end of the year. So I'm going to say that this one is definitely going to next year. I feel bad about that because, like I said, and this is why I'm bad at TBRs. But for me, I like having the flexibility of saying, yeah, this is how I'm going to do it, but then kind of thinking about it and realizing, oh, but Lonesome Dove, well, I did it for March of the Mammoths, and it was a buddy read. So I like the flexibility of being able to say, you know what, I'm going to do that one first, and then look at the current political climate and choose a different one to say, you know what, I want to do that one next. I'm still going to get to His Family, but this one for sure is going to get pushed to next year. And we're going to leave it at that. Next, going back to the original pile, Kevin Maxwell's Forced Out, A Detective's Story of Prejudice and Resilience. I picked this one up because Bernardine Evaristo recommended it after all of the protests around Black Lives Matter began in the United States and around the world. And basically, this is a story of a police officer in the UK who is black and gay, and the discrimination that he faced and how he tried to change the system from within and ultimately was, as the title implies, forced out. So, I am very interested in reading this. It feels like 2020 is the time to read this. So here's what I'm going to say. I'm not going to put it in the must pile with The Left Hand of Darkness. I'm going to put it in my a third pile where if I get to it, probably nonfiction November. Good on me, basically. So this will be something that I'm still going to keep in my 2020 options pile, whereas His Family is 2021 at this point. Okay, going back to the second pile. This is something that I had mentioned on my TBR for my reading goal, Read Outside Your Comfort Zone. I had included young adult or intermediate books in there, and I've actually read 2 young adult books this year. So, although thinking about it in hindsight, young adult is not and intermediate is not a category I really closed myself off to. So including it was probably a bit of a reach on my part, since it's not a genre I don't engage with at all. But anyway, point being, I have hit that brief from my Read Outside Your Comfort Zone challenge. And even though this is a book I say I'm going to read every single year for years, because people keep recommending it to me, I'm going to say that this is 2021. I'm not going to get to this year. And sorry, because every time I mention this book, people tell me it's really good and I need to read it. I will read it, hopefully in 2021 now. And going back to our original pile, what do we have? Angels in America by Tony Kushner. This is not for my Read Outside Your Comfort Zone challenge because I read drama. This is a play. But it's just something I really have wanted to read for a very long time, and I have not even seen it performed, because even with the movie, I wanted to read it before I see the movie, and because I haven't read it, I haven't seen the movie. So, weird logic on that part. But this is something that I had put on my reading list for June. In the month of June, I tried to read LGBTQ books, but I did not get to it because I ended up throwing out my TBR for the month of June in order to read stories that focused on, black queer lives and narrators and authors. And so I kind of put this to the side. Will I still get to it in 2020? I'm tempted to say, let's push this to 2021, but drama reads fairly quickly. So I'm going to keep this in my 2020 options pile. And if I'm looking for something fairly quick, I'll pick this up. So that seems relatively harmless and like it won't stress me out too much. Then we have The Women of Brewster Place by Gloria Naylor. I've been wanting to read this for about a year and a half now, and it keeps getting delayed. It was on my TBR, a list of options for June, because it is a black queer story. It's the story of a bunch of different women. There are queer elements within that, so it would have fit. However, I didn't get to it in the month of June. And I think the likelihood that I'm going to fit it in before the end of 2020 is not very good. So I'm going to say The Women of Brewster Place is going to move to 2021. And that's my final answer on that one. Then we get to, oh boy, a project book, The Mirror and the Light by Hilary Mantel. I've read Wolf Hall, I've read Bring Up the Bodies, and I would really like to get to The Mirror and the Light. Will I do it this year? Hoo boy, I would like to. I think, so I mentioned in my video that I posted yesterday, which I will link down below, where I did a book haul revisit for October. I mentioned that I had Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky and Duck's Newbury Report, and my original thinking for those was that they might be good, like winter reads, like when it's snowing and you just curl up on the couch and don't do anything all day because it's like a snow day, that they would be good for that. I think this is going to be, my approach to this will be the same as that. Plan for like a winter day when there's not really much else going on. Will that be in December? Maybe. Will it be January, February? More likely. So, but instead of putting it to 2021, I'm going to keep it in my options list, because if the holidays come around and I'm not doing anything and I'm wanting to curl up on the couch with something for a while, I'll pick this up. So, all right, that's going on my 2020 options pile. And now switching to the other pile, Luster, a novel by Raven Leilani. I do want to read this. I don't think it's going to happen this year, especially since now my must pile has one title and my maybe pile has three. I'm going to say that this is definitely going to be 2021 at the earliest. So as much as I really want to read this, I'm putting it in my 2021 pile. I feel bad about that. I also feel bad about Isabel Allende's The House of the Spirits, because this is one that in my 2020 TBR video for my reading goal, Read Outside Your Comfort Zone, I was pretty sure that this was going to be just absolutely on my list. I would get to it this year because I needed to I wanted to hit all of the continents, and I needed South America. But I'm currently reading Gabriel Garcia Marquez's Love in the Time of Cholera, because Courtney Farrader and I decided to do a buddy read of it, and she really wanted to read another Gabriel Garcia Marquez book, and I'd been putting it off, so I decided to do that. So I've hit South America. Will I do this year? Because I feel I don't want to like just check off South America with Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I think it would be interesting to get a different perspective, but I'm gonna put this in my maybe pile. But if it does shift to 2021, that's fine. I have an idea of what my project for 2021 is going to be, and I'm not going to talk about that right now, but it would actually fit the brief for that. So if I don't, I'm going to put it in my maybe pile, but if I don't get to it, it's not the end of the world, and there will be a lot of potential to revisit it next year. Next, Conditional Citizens by Leila Lalami. This is one of the books that I mentioned I was really looking forward to reading this year, and I'm still really looking forward to it. Will I get to it? Okay, my maybe pile is going to be intense. I'm going to keep it on that because this would be a good fit for Nonfiction November. It's not a very big book. It's and actually it has a lot of footnotes and bibliography in the back, so it's about 165 pages. So that wouldn't necessarily be a bad book to get to. Possibly Nonfiction November. So I'm going to keep this in my maybe pile. Basically, and in this election year, it's very timely. So this does feel like a 2021 read. So I'm putting this in my 2020 options pile, which is getting really long. You can actually see the pile now. Okay, now we get to something that is going to be a must read, because Beloved by Toni Morrison is something I have planned a buddy read with Amelia Reeds. She's a commenter. In the month of December, we had basically agreed to do that back in January when we did a buddy read of Song of Solomon. So this is definitely going to happen in 2020 in December. So Beloved by Toni Morrison is going on my 2020 must-read pile. And it's going to be interesting to see if this steals Song of Solomon spot as my #1 read of the year, because if anybody could beat Toni Morrison, who better than Toni Morrison and her most acclaimed work? So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, this is going in my must pile. And then going back to my second pile, A Single Man by Christopher Isherwood. I have one of those tiny little pocket-sized editions of it from Picador Modern Classics. So this was originally on my TBR in June, because again, I like to read LGBTQ stories in the month of June, and it got bumped because the priority shifted away from what I had originally selected as my TBR for June. And I'm going to say, with apologies to Christopher Isherwood, this is 2021. Because also, if nothing else, it's a perfect fit for my TBR for next June. So yeah, that's going to 2021. Okay, now we get to Love by Toni Morrison, and this is also going in my 2020 must, because I have a buddy read of this planned for next month with Britta Bowler. So by the end of the year, I will have read 3 Toni Morrison books that I had not read before. Song of Solomon in January, Love in November, and Beloved in December. And again, it'll be interesting to see if this can compete for my favorite book of the year. So, but basically, Britta had asked if we could do a buddy read of Toni Morrison, because I have been a big fan of Toni Morrison. She has kind of struggled with her, and we wanted to choose one that Britta has not read yet. So here we are with love, and this is going on my must pile with another Toni Morrison book and Ursula K. Le Guin. Okay, Cleanness by Garth Greenwell. This was released this year. It was another one of my books I was most looking forward to in 2020 and didn't get to it because, again, my priority list for June, my June TBR with LGBTQ books changed. So I'm going to say Garth Greenwell is probably going to get pushed to 2021. And just keep it easy like that. Okay, The Yield by Tara June Winch. I've heard really good things about this book. It's a prize winner. It's Australian, and I hit Australia already, but I don't want to just, like I said with Isabel Allende, I don't want to just hit one continent and assume I'm done, because there are many perspectives on a continent, and I think it would be interesting to hear Tara June Winch's perspective as a writer from Australia compared to Tim Winton, who is the author that I read earlier this year and did not like. So I'm going to keep this on my maybe pile because I do really want to get to this. Will I? I don't know, because my maybe pile is getting kind of intense. I mean, I'm going to have to, I'll leave it here for now, but I'm going to have to supplement my maybe pile. Actually, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to combine my two piles into one pile and push this back. So now I have a little more room here, which means nothing to you. Isn't it fun to watch me organize my table? Anyway. Okay, let's continue. So, The Yield by Tara June Winch is on my 2020 options pile. Mr. Loverman by Bernardine Evaristo. This is I have really, her backlist is very interesting, and this is the one that jumped out to me the most. I had already purchased Girl, Woman, Other, which I read in June, and I really would like to read this, but I'm going to say this can get pushed to 2021. I'm not going to rush this. Yeah. I mean, even if I end up putting it on my June TBR, is already looking insane, isn't it? But it would be a fit for that. And yeah, so I don't feel too bad pushing this to 2021. I do definitely want to read it. Okay. The Enlightenment of the Greengage Tree by Shikufe Azar. This was shortlisted for the Stella Prize. It was also shortlisted for the International Booker Prize, and I really want to read it. But I'm going to say this one is also going to get pushed to 2021 at this point. Yeah, that seems about right. But yeah, so I'm still looking forward to it. I hope I get to it in 2021, but I don't think this is going to happen in 2020, which is a shame. But there's only so much time, and there's a lot to read. Next, we have The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abby Dare. I don't know how to say that. And like I said, I didn't do a lot of preparation for this video, so I didn't even look it up. I'm sorry. Anyway, I am really looking forward to reading this book. Have I hit Africa? Oh, that's a good question. For my Read Outside Your Comfort Zone, I'm supposed to hit every continent. I don't think I've hit Africa yet. And I think this is the only book. Yeah, this is the only book. Oh, no, it's not. It's not the only book that would hit it. Okay, and I think I'm spoiling, but I'm going to prioritize the other. I'm going to put the other one on my must list, and I'm going to say I'm going to bump this to 2021. And you'll see what. Let's just jump to that one. I'm going to skip a book ahead, and we'll talk about that. Nervous Conditions by Tsitsi Dangaremga. I apparently forgot my copy of This Mournable Body, but I want to read Nervous Conditions before I read This Mournable Body, which is shortlisted for the Booker Prize this year. So this will hit Africa for my Read Outside Your Comfort Zone challenge. So I'm going to put this on my must list. And also it's pretty slim, so hopefully it won't be too much of a project. And it will, because if I read this first, then I can get to This Mournable Body, which I did not bring here. And then I guess let's pretend I have my copy of This Mournable Body, and it's going to be sitting on my 2020 options pile because I want to do this first. But this is going to go on my must pile. With apologies to Abby Dare. Yeah, and that will help me meet one of my goals for my Read Outside Your Comfort Zone challenge. And yeah, and then I can look to other things. So that's going on my must pile. Next book. Gachar Gochar by Vivek Shanbang. So I think I've hit Asia. Yeah, I've definitely hit Asia. I'm gonna keep this in my 2020 options pile because it's only small. It's very small. It's 118 pages. So I'm going to keep it in my options pile just because if I want something really short, maybe novellas in November would be a good fit for this. So yeah, this is something that I had gotten so I could, for the geography portion of my Read Outside Your Comfort Zone challenge, and I could still do this, right? This is doable, I think. Maybe, we'll see. So I'm gonna put that in my 2020 options list. Ooh. Real Life by Brandon Taylor. I really want to read this. It is shortlisted for the Booker Prize, and do I put this on? So it's staying in 2020, but is it going on my must list or my options list? I'm going to put it on my options list. And that way, if I get to it, great. If I don't, whatever. I do want to read this soon. But if it doesn't happen in 2020, that's fine. The world's not going to end. Well, the world's not going to end if I don't read any of these in 2020, but let's not be dramatic, Greg. I'm sorry. Anyway, so, okay, I'm putting it in my 2020 options list because I want to get to it this year if I can, but if I don't, it's fine. It's all fine. Everything's good. No stress here. Okay, this is definitely going in my 2020. I'm tempted to put it in my must list, but I'm going to say options. It's The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Disha Filia. Yes, I got a copy. This is a spoiler for my book haul for the month of October. Yes, I got a copy. I'm really excited to read it, but I'm not going to say I have to before the end of the year. It's short stories, and it's a small book as well. So it's short stories, and it is 176 pages, so that's doable. So yeah, this is going on my 2020 options pile. And my options pile is looking kind of insane. But like I said, nothing here is a given. I'm not forcing myself to do any. Well, I am going to force myself to do this next one. So don't listen to me. It's the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin, and this is something I need to do for my Read Outside Your Comfort Zone challenge. I mentioned at the beginning that I need to read a sci-fi book and a fantasy book. The Left Hand of Darkness hits sci-fi. The 5th season will hit fantasy. This is the first volume in the Broken Earth trilogy. Yeah, the Broken Earth trilogy. And I'm really excited to read N.K. Jemisin. I gave a copy of this book to my niece for Christmas last year and then got a copy for myself for the Read Outside Your Comfort Zone challenge. So this is going on my must pile. Have to get to this by the end. I had actually been planning to do this in July and ended up bumping it. Was it July or August? I don't remember. It's a blur. 2020 is a blur. But I want to get to it before the end of the year. So it's going on my must pile, which actually my must pile so far is all women. That's interesting. My must pile is shaping up to be all women. All right, Gone with the Wind. This is the book that I am bumping his family for because with all of the protests around Black Lives Matter and things like that, I started thinking about a couple of the Pulitzer Prize winners, but this one in particular because this occupies a really interesting spot. It's also a classic movie, and a lot of people on BookTube and out in the world love this book and will defend this book. But with everything going on this year with, you know, the Black Lives Matter protests and the talk of racial justice in America and America's history of institutionalized racism and things like that, I think about all of that and Gone with the Wind, and so there's a timeliness to this conversation and whether or not this book has aged well, whether or not it's problematic, but it also kind of ties in thematically with Lonesome Dove in a way, and I'm kind of tipping my hat about what my exploration into this book will be, but I think about Lonesome Dove and how Larry McMurtry approached that. You see, Larry McMurtry was born in Texas at a time when people who had been in the Old West were still alive and could tell him stories about their experience, and he was fascinated with the stories of what the Old West had been and what it had meant. But as he got older, he began to question that myth-making, and in his fiction he sought to interrogate that myth-making, and Lonesome Dove does that very much. I will link my full review of Lonesome Dove down below. And Margaret Mitchell has a very similar approach, but a very different motivation. So you see, she grew up in the South at a time when people who had been part of the Civil War and the pre-Civil War era and the era immediately following the Civil War were still alive and could tell her stories about the South. And she was also fascinated by the myth-making, but instead of growing up to question the myth-making, Margaret Mitchell grew up and sort of perpetuated it. with Gone with the Wind, which is a story about the devastation of the South after the Civil War and how Southern society had been forever altered. So there is sort of a thematic tie with a very key difference between what Larry McMurtry was doing with Lonesome Dove and what Margaret Mitchell is doing with Gone with the Wind. And I think that's fascinating. So I would like to read this year, but this is a brick of a book. And I'm looking at my must-read pile, which now has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books, one of which is also a brick. That's The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. So I really want to do this in 2020 if I can, but I'm going to put it on my maybe pile. And if I get to it, great. If I don't, whatever, no big deal. So because I really want to keep my must pile manageable. And I think putting this on the maybe pile will avoid some stress as much as I want to do this year. And I need to let myself be okay with, like, if I don't get to it in 2020, that's fine. It will still be timely. It will still be relevant in 2021, unfortunately. But yeah, so, okay. Long way of saying Gone with the Wind is going on my 2020 options list. Okay, and then the final book for my options pile is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. Now, I started this on audio, actually, despite the fact that I have a physical copy of the book. And I feel like I need, because I did the first half of the book on audio, I feel like I need to finish it on audio. And I'm on the wait list for this. And it should be available by the end of the year. I think I have 5, maybe 6 weeks before it will be available again. So I'm going to put this on my options list. Don't need to finish it. I probably will. Of all the books on the maybe pile, this is the one that's most likely because I'm already half done. And I'm on the hold list for the audio. So this one seems pretty definite that I will get to before the end of 2020, but I'm going to put it on my options pile because I don't think it's essential. So let's recap really quickly. The ones that I'm pushing off to 2021 are A Single Man by Christopher Isherwood, The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abby Dare, The Enlightenment of the Greengage Tree by Shikufe Azar, Mr. Loverman by Bernardine Evaristo, Cleanness by Garth Greenwell, Luster by Raven Leilani. I dropped The Women of Brewster Place by Gloria Naylor, I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson, and His Family by Ernest Poole. Those are still books that I want to read and hopefully will read. Maybe 2021, maybe beyond, but they're not going to happen in 2021, or if they do, it will not have been planned. Now let's look at my maybe pile, which is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell, The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Disha Philyaw, Real Life by Brandon Taylor, Gachar Gochar by Vivek Shanbang, The Yield by Tara June Winch, Conditional Citizens by Leila Lalami, The House of the Spirits by Isabel Allende, The Mirror and the Light by Hilary Mantel, Angels in America by Tony Kushner, and Forced Out by Kevin Maxwell. These so if I have time and inclination, this is such a hefty pile, oh my god. If I have time and inclination, this is the pile I'll be choosing from in my next reads. But if I don't get to them this year, it's fine. The world won't end. I mean, like I said, the world won't end anyways. I keep being dramatic. So those are my options. This is my options pile. I don't usually do a TBR pile, but I think I will keep these off of the shelves just so I know that these are the books I can go to and pull from when I have time and I'm looking for something to read. My must books, my must reads before the end of the year. The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin, because again, I need to read a fantasy book for my Read Outside Your Comfort Zone challenge. Nervous Conditions by Tsitsi Dangarembga, because I need to hit the continent of Africa, and because this will also allow me to pursue the option of reading This Mortal Body, which I forgot. Let's pretend that was on my maybe pile, which is shortlisted for the Booker Prize. But I think that I've heard very mixed things about Nervous Conditions and about This Mortal Body, but I'd like to read it for myself. Love by Toni Morrison, which I have a buddy read planned for November, so should be easy enough to get into. And Beloved, also by Toni Morrison, also has a buddy read planned, this time in December, so should be easy enough. And The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. which I need to read because I need a sci-fi book for my Read Outside Your Comfort Zone challenge. So, and then if I get in, I don't have any other poetry books that I can read from my Read Outside Your Comfort Zone challenge. I already got one, so technically I've ticked the box. If one comes my way, sure, I'll read another one. But this is what I'm looking at for the end of 2020. This is my TBR. These are the books I must read. These are the ones that I will be choosing from. If you have recommendations based on these, I have to read. I'm committed to these. But if you have recommendations on priorities for anything from here or on the pile that I've pushed to 2020, you want to tell me I'm crazy for pushing any of those off, hey, do it. You know, it's your life. But anyway, as always, I really appreciate your time, and I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.